Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today we talk about everyone's favorite girl.
Have you seen V's waist? Oh yeah, you're quoting me. Bro, come on. I'm talking. Yo, why did they make her like that? She's a robot.
And little disclaimer, I know the most popular theory about this topic is that she isn't actually dead, but just for the sake of this video is more about if this scene was necessary not to kill off that one character in particular and stuff like that. Anyways, now to the question in the thumbnail, was V's death necessary? And because there's not simply a yes or no answer to that, my editor will put a little yes or no box on top of the screen and you will also find it in the chapters. But the first point would be seeing it from a financial perspective. Like, this is by far the smallest point, but I still wanted to mention it. The V plushie in the Glitch store and also the other merch of her is still available and not limited, which of course people still want to buy merch of characters even though the characters are dead, but not many new people could like that character and want to buy much of them. But it also could be that you want to like the character more through that sacrifice that she did. Like, for example, me, I only owned the knockoff N plushie and the Uzi plushie. I was always a bit hesitant about V and didn't know if I'm going to like her or not. But after I saw this scene, I thought like, yeah, you know what, let's buy that stuff. But it's still something you can mention. But we know Glitch doesn't care about money, but about telling a good story. And speaking of a good story, would it be logical for the character development? Like, let's look at it. When we are introduced to her, she starts out being a crazy maniac and not much more. In the second episode, we can see that she has more of a humane side. And especially in the scene in the end, you can see how she actually is just pretending to have this crazy personality and actually has something more behind it. Third episode, she completely reset it again to crazy girl, but now she is able to manipulate N, which was the job of J, but now that she is no longer, V takes that place, and at the end of the episode, she seems to be on the same side as our main characters. In the next episode, she's still the same, but just a little bit annoyed by Uzi, which is understandable in my opinion. So hey, I maybe forgot to talk about the camping episode, but basically V is just manipulative again, but not to N, but to Uzi this time. And she's afraid of something we don't know yet, what we learn about in the next episode. So, sorry I didn't talk about this part.
I forgot.
In the last episode, she kinda realizes that whatever she was trying to prevent or want to have the control over is way too big for her own, and kinda realizes that she isn't the main player anymore, which would explain this scene where she says,
Yeah. Uzi, I trust you.
because after N says we need you, we kinda says that they don't need her, that she can't influence the outcome anymore. And she says to Uzi that she trusts her to don't mess everything up. And we, in that case, doesn't have a purpose anymore and straight up kills herself, because if it were a sacrifice, she would actually have started to fight some of the sentinels before she was taken apart, instead of just standing there and getting herself killed for no reason at all. Which brings me to the next point. Let's look at this from a logical perspective. Like you maybe have seen in the background, there's this one scene to make the sentinels threatening. They show a bunch of dead disassembly drones, which explains why especially our main characters are the first ones to go down there. But it's so stupid because not a single disassembly drone would have died to a sentinel if it wasn't for plot convenience. But you may be saying, but Raptor, they have this they can boop loop them, they can whatever this is. And to that I say, just close your eyes and blind fire. Even V tries to do that. Like in the last point, I can agree that V sacrificed herself, but for that reason it's just stupid. The sentinels are zero threat. The boot looping doesn't compare to the regeneration and rockets, lasers and whatever disassembly drones all have. Now to the last point I wanted to mention, is this even real? Like, this scene is something called a cliffhanger. If you watch Murder Drones, you will notice every episode has at least one cliffhanger. Some of them bigger, some of them smaller. But this is actually a smart strategy, because each episode takes so long to produce, it keeps the viewer excited. But the problem is if you force the cliffhanger. Like some cliffhangers are able to occur naturally, like in episode 4, this was a good cliffhanger, and also in episode 2, there were 2 cliffhangers that made sense. And the most important thing that was actually important later on, because in the 2 cliffhangers you see Doll, who's being set up to be the next villain, and the fact that V isn't chained anymore and is trying to hide something that is being brought up in the next 2 episodes. The problem is though if you have a cliffhanger, just to have a cliffhanger. Like in the first episode, I'm not going to criticize it too much because the story wasn't fully planned back then, which we see a bunch of landing pods which come to Copper 9. Which then sets up the expectation that we will see more disassembly drones that we haven't seen before. Now to the cliffhanger in episode 3, where we get the resolution. 2 of them crash land with all the passengers not coming out. The one that actually lands contains Tessa, which is a fair cliffhanger because in the next 2 episodes it did explain who this person actually is. But because back then we didn't know who Tessa was, they also brought Jay back. But the problem was, it didn't pay off because she didn't have any screen time. So why bring her back in the first place? I mean, hopefully she gets a better role in episode 7 and 8, because otherwise this was just a big scoop of fan service. But these cliffhangers can be overlooked because they have had a payoff. Tessa is an important character, so it's smart to introduce her this way. But my problem now is with the last cliffhanger we got, was this one where we saw a tense conversation between Doll, Tessa and Jay, which set up tension, but suddenly the main crew meets them because of course they could have followed Doll, but still kinda random that they just showed up there. And of course, because they have a eye-to-eye meeting, all of them are shocked and it cuts away, which then sets up the expectation for an epic fight in the next episode. And the next episode arrives and look over there, they just talk and Doll runs away. Like, okay, I could have misunderstood it, but this is where we get to my main fear for the V cliffhanger, that we all misinterpret it. Like that V doesn't actually die here, but it's set up that way. You know what I mean? Of course, I could be wrong. I'm just afraid that it won't be the case, but either she dies or transforms into an absolute solver monster, which would be the good cases, sadly. Or the worst cases is that she doesn't dies and comes back injured or gets saved by Jay. Which the problem is, of course Jay has a purpose then, but you set up this big tension, especially for such a long time, just to say, oops, I guess it wasn't the case then. So currently I can't say if this is a yes or a no point, which means we have a tie. So it's up for you to decide now. Do you think this whole scene to kill off V, was it necessary? We have to see in the end what happens in the next episode, that hopefully will come out soon. And then maybe in the aftermath we can say how important the scene actually was. But anyways, I hope you have a good day. This was one of the highest quality videos I have done so far, and I hope you enjoyed it and noticed it. And as always, I hope you have a great day. And remember,
you know what that means. Branded pen.